This past week, as we Jews commemorated a miracle long ago, in which a little bit of oil lasted much longer than it should have, the entire world celebrated a miracle of our own time, in which a little bit of biochemical hope arrived much sooner than anyone could have imagined. I'm speaking, of course, of the coronavirus vaccines. Before December 2020, the quickest vaccine ever created took 4 years to develop. The miracle workers at Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna finished the job in a matter of months. The end of the pandemic is finally in sight, but it is still a long way away. As I was thinking about what the next several months have in store for us, in the midst of my reveries of a triumphant return to the gym, I couldn't help but see a parallel between our present situation and this week's Torah portion, Miketz. At the beginning of the Parsha, Pharaoh has his famous nightmares of 7 cannibalistic cows and ears of grain. Desperate for some prophetic psychoanalysis, Pharaoh eventually seeks the counsel of Joseph, who successfully interprets his dreams. Egypt will see 7 years of great abundance, followed by 7 years of savage famine. To combat the coming crisis, Joseph proposes that Pharaoh appoint a wise and discerning famine czar to collect the extra grain grown during the years of plenty and stockpile it for the years of hunger. Given our American instinct for individualism, I would be remiss if I didn't note that Joseph's approach to the problem of scarcity demands that the Egyptian people sacrifice some of their freedom. But his plan works. The terrible famine comes, and when it does, Joseph's food reserves ensure that Egypt has the supply of sustenance it so desperately needs. What strikes me about this story now, though, is how easily Joseph's strategy could have failed. Not because the famine was more severe than predicted, or because Pharaoh pulled his support for the project, but because of the Egyptian people. What if the Egyptian people hadn't gone along with Joseph's plan? What if they had refused to participate, to give willingly of their crops for the benefit of all? Which brings me back to the coronavirus vaccines. According to a recent survey conducted by the Kaiser Family Foundation, 27% of Americans say that they probably or definitely wouldn't take a COVID-19 vaccine, even if it were available for free and deemed safe by scientists. The primary reasons for their hesitancy: anxieties about possible side effects, worries about the role of politics and government in the development and distribution process, and concern that the vaccines are too new. And the truth is, there are things that we still don't know about these vaccines. We're awaiting more data for recommendations for children and for pregnant women, and we don't know how long the injections will confer immunity. These fears are real. And I want to say to those among us who hold them, it's okay to be skeptical. Indeed, In a recent interview about the coronavirus vaccines, epidemiologist Dr. Abdul El Sayed affirmed that the essence of science is skepticism. Scientists are skeptical for a living. Their job is to weigh their professional doubt against evidence. And in the case of these vaccines, the evidence is overwhelming. The FDA was looking for 50% efficacy from vaccine candidates to grant emergency use authorization. These vaccines hit 95% while being held to the same rigorous safety standards as all clinical trials. I love the way that Dr. El Sayed put it. He said that as soon as he can get the vaccine, he will put his shoulder where his mouth is. Joining him with a bare upper arm are Dr. Anthony Fauci, former presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton, President-elect Joe Biden, and as of today, Vice President Mike Pence, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi have all received their first injection of the vaccine publicly. But we need to give a special salute to Nurse Sandra Lindsay, the Director of Critical Care Nursing at the Long Island Jewish Medical Center in Queens. Nurse Lindsay, on Monday morning in a televised press conference, became the first American to receive the vaccine. And she specifically said that she hoped that her example would inspire vaccine skeptics to take the plunge of the syringe. The science behind these vaccines is as clear and convincing as Joseph's interpretations of Pharaoh's dreams. But just as Joseph's plans to save Egypt required the cooperation of the Egyptian people, so too will a successful COVID-19 vaccination program require the cooperation of all of us. I don't think anyone in Egypt liked giving Joseph their extra crops. I don't know anyone who likes getting shots. But I do know lots of people who like having Passover and Thanksgiving with their families, who like going out to dinner with friends, who like seeing musicals and movies and the Mets, who like praying in a sanctuary full of people, who like doing burpees with a group instead of all by themselves. There are lots of good reasons for each of us to get vaccinated individually. And there is one transcendent reason for all of us to get vaccinated collectively. What do you think Joseph said to the skeptical farmers that he met during his travels throughout Egypt? What convinced them to give willingly of their crops? I'd like to think that this was the conversation that Joseph had with these farmers. This famine is coming, and you'll probably be okay. But your neighbor, he's got a bad back. He's not doing so well. And I'm not so sure he's going to be able to harvest enough grain to have extra to store for him and his family. And there's this old woman in town. She's so sweet. She doesn't have a farm or family of her own. And then there's the orphanage. There are many people who will be unable to get vaccinated against the coronavirus. Some are at risk of a severe allergic reaction. Some have a compromised immune system. Some won't be old enough. And this is the essential reason for those of us who can to get vaccinated, to protect those of us who can't. Vaccination is as clear an application as exists of that most fundamental of Jewish values, pikuach nefesh, the preservation of life. This has been understood since the discovery of the first vaccine over 200 years ago. That vaccine famously inoculated against smallpox. And the Hasidic master Reb Nachman of Breslov wrote that failure to obtain its miraculous protection was akin to spilling blood. According to Jewish tradition, failure to vaccinate is considered a sin as grievous as murder, which is why rabbis around the country, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Orthodox, and ultra-Orthodox Ashkenazi and Sephardi are telling their communities, take the vaccine as soon as you can get it. In fact, Rabbi Shmuel Hertzfeld of DC released a TikTok video of himself getting the shot that went viral. 400,000 views later, Rabbi Hertzfeld said that getting vaccinated was the most important sermon of his life. What will we do with this year's Hanukkah miracle? My dear friend and chavruta, Renana Dine, who is pursuing a doctorate in medical ethics at the University of Chicago, shared with me that when she sees videos like Rabbi Hertzfeld's and vaccination selfies by friends of hers who are first responders, she can't help but think of these as acts of pirsumei nisa, publicizing the miracle. The rabbis say that pirsumei nisa is the reason that we light the Chanukiah in the window and display its flickering flames for all the world to see, to publicize the miracle of that little drop of oil that could. Likewise, Renana wrote this week, vaccination selfies serve as candles on our societal Chanukiah, and posts on Facebook and Twitter are a virtual windowsill. Each shot reminds us of the miracle of science, our participation in salvation in that miracle, and brings us closer to filling our world with light again. We still have a long way to go before this pandemic is over. And even after the vaccine becomes widely available, and even after we ourselves have been fortunate enough to get it, we still have to wear our masks, we still have to socially distance, and we still have to do all of the things that medical professionals tell us to do to keep everyone safe. But once again, the darkest time of year has proven to be a season of miracles. And I can't wait to put my shoulder where my mouth is. Shabbat Shalom.